My name is Gabriel Ogbechie. At the University of Benin in 1987. I took a degree in engineering. I served in Kano 1987-88. I worked briefly in Kano. Then I came down to Lagos and joined a firm of then Pricewaterhouse, now called PricewaterhouseCoopers. I worked with Pricewaterhouse, then left Pricewaterhouse in 1992 and joined a company called Rainoil Limited. I was in Rainoil Oil from 92 to 97. I remember then, 92, 93, 94, I was on a salary of 30,000 naira a month. I asked myself one very simple question. Gabriel, what else can you do to make 30,000 naira in a month? I asked myself that question because I believed then, as I still believe today, that anything you can do to make your salary can take the place of your job. You know, when you have a job, you're working for a company, they pay you 6 million naira per annum, that's 500,000 naira every month. Essentially what that company is doing is saying is come to work at 8 o'clock, do this set of tasks from 8 to 5, and then at the end of the month, we'll give you 500,000 naira. Any other thing you can do to make that same 500,000 naira can take the place of your job. So I asked myself that question and I said, Gabriel, if I sell a truck of diesel, I will make 30,000 naira. A truck of diesel in 94, 95, we're buying diesel for 9 naira per liter, we're selling it for 10 naira per liter. A truck of diesel, 30,000 liters. So if I buy one truck of diesel, even if I go home and sleep for 30 days, after 30 days, come back and collect my check, I will make 30,000 naira. A truck of diesel was 300,000 naira. But first things first, I needed to incorporate a company. So in 1994, I remember then, my wife and I went to meet a friend of mine who is a lawyer and a pastor, NFA Korubo. NFA, I want to start a company. So what kind of company? An oil and gas company. So what name do we give to this company? So we started banding names around. Why don't you call it Gab Oil? Why don't you call it this oil? Why don't you call it that oil? And NFA said, no, Gabriel. Rain stands for blessing. Why don't we call it rain oil? I said, NFA, you know what, you're right. But instead of calling it rain oil, we're going to merge the rain and the oil together to get one word, Rainoil. And that was how Rainoil Limited was incorporated in November 1994. Certificate of Incorporation 257444, I don't forget. I took the Certificate of Incorporation, put it in my drawer. So step one, I will tell you, incorporate a company. If you have plans of starting a business at any point in time, the time to incorporate that business is now. How many of you here have ever tried to incorporate a company lately and you worked so hard to come up with a name and then you send it to CAC and they say the name is no longer available? Names are disappearing very fast, so incorporate a business. Recall I had a hypothesis that if I sell a truck of diesel, I will make how much? 30,000 naira. I needed 300,000 naira to sell the truck of diesel. I didn't have the money. I wrote proposals. I went to those who I knew had the money. All I was getting was meet me here, meet me there for a meeting, stories. So I learned my first lesson. People rarely give money to those who don't have. Do I have a witness in the house? I couldn't raise 300,000 naira. But I had a habit. My office was in Isolo, 51 Irakari Estate Road in Isolo. I was doing a lot of work out of the NNPC depot in Ejigbo. I had a stockbroker who was on Bankantoni Way in Ikeja. With as little as 2,000 naira, I would drive from Isolo to Bankantoni Way and say, Nyemike, buy me 500 units of Nigerian breweries. 1,500 naira, I would drive to Bankantoni Way, Nyemike, buy me 800 units of First Bank. I was investing in stock, little by little. By 1996, I was getting frustrated. I couldn't raise the 300,000 naira. So one evening, I was living in Egbada then. One evening, I brought out my capital market file. And I started itemizing all the stock one by one. 1,000 units of 7-Up at 70 kobo per share, 700 naira. 2,000 units of First Bank at 6 naira per share, 12,000 naira. I don't forget that 7-Up because 7-Up was number 1 on the list. And it was trading for 70 kobo, and the number of shares of 7-Up I had was 1,000 units. So the entire value of those shares was 700 naira. But I itemized all the stock, and I was surprised. They went into 2 pages. When I summed them up, it came to 497,000 naira. Praise the Lord. You know, for those of us who are Christians, the Bible admonishes us that we should cast our bread upon the waters that we may find it after many days. It came to 497,000 naira. I was surprised. Those were the days of share certificates, not these days of CSCS. How many of you here know what CSCS is? Those were the days of share certificates. I took the share certificates. I took them to the same stockbroker, Nyemike. He verified the ones he could verify. He sold the ones he could sell. By the end of the day, I had my 300,000 naira. Having raised the 300,000 naira, I now needed to go into the marketplace to test my hypothesis. I'm a salesman. I was the salesman. I'm still a salesman. I had no challenges identifying a company in Ikeja called First Aluminium Nigeria PLC. A classmate of mine in university was working there as an engineer, Mike Okolo, so he introduced me to the purchasing manager, a gentleman called Mr. Ojo. So I had no challenges convincing him to give me an LPO to supply them 30,000 liters of diesel at 10 naira per liter, 300,000 naira. So he told me to come on this fateful Tuesday to come and pick my LPO. So this day, I went there very excited. How far, Mr. Ojo? What of the LPO? He said, Gabriel, sorry, the LPO is not ready. I said, why? He said, the GM refused to sign. I said, which GM? I got up. He thought I was leaving. There was a GM, a gentleman called Aija Haneku. His office was down the corridor to the left. He had a secretary to the right of his door. So I just approached the GM's office. I knew that if I made the mistake of telling the secretary I wanted to see the GM, that would have been the end of it. So I just approached the door. Good afternoon, ma'am. As she raised her eyes to look at me, I had opened the GM's door, and I was in the GM's office. Yes, young man, what can I do for you? My LPO is on your table. Please, can you help me sign it? I said, he said, which company? I said, Rainoil. He said, which one is Rainoil? We only buy from Unipetrol or Mobil or Total. Aija Haneku was seated, I was standing. I did all the marketing I could do that day. Aija Haneku was ready to sign this LPO. Gabriel Ogbechie wasn't ready to go anywhere. At some point, he got tired of me. He wanted to leave me in his office. So as he approached the door, I just used my body to block the door and say, help a young man who wants to grow. Sign this LPO. Aija Haneku looked at me long and hard, went back to his table, signed the LPO and said, I don't want to ever see you in my office again. I said, thank you very much, sir. I took this LPO, I did this supply. Instead of making 30,000 naira, I made 45,000 naira. From that singular supply in November 1996, we have grown this organization to what it is today.